guys, good morning. So today I just want to give you a little tour around our vegetable garden. It's mid-August. I think we're right at the very end of the worst heat of the summer, but everything's doing pretty well in here. So I just wanted to give you a look. I'll talk to you about what I've grown in each one of these beds and then what's currently in there now, and then any plans that I may have, because I'm going to shift some stuff around next year, I think. So first of all, we go under this arbor. My Colette Roses are doing really well. I need to do a little bit more pruning, kind of clean up the bottoms a bit, and then do some training up here, kind of tie these off. But they've bloomed really beautifully all summer long for the most part. As we come in, I do have some containers in here. I've got a pot of chives that's actually hooked into our drip system, so I've never even had to water that one. I cut it back about midsummer after its first flush and after it bloomed. So I cut it like this far down from the soil, and then it came back like this, and I just love it. But I always put chives in a container because they like to spread themselves around. So that's a good way to grow them. Right here we have our all white container that I planted up not that long ago. Skyrocket Pennisetum, Sage, Supertunias, Angelonia. It's doing beautifully. And I love to stand like back here and I can see the west side, which is all white and green right now, and then I can see that container, and I just love that. This bed first, I have a super fantastic tomato. This is the one I took after with the pruners, and it's doing really well. I actually could stand to use or to add some more taller stakes, but I honestly don't know if I want it that much taller. So once it kind of fills in up here, I'll probably start topping it. But it's producing a lot of tomatoes. I've harvested a ton of tomatoes from this plant. And it's producing a lot more up here toward the top, and I haven't had any issues with like blossom end rot, which is a calcium deficiency, and it's something that I typically deal with tomatoes. So I've just been really happy with this one. I did come out here a couple days ago and I cleaned up the top because I had really pruned up the bottom, and there was still like it put on a ton of growth up here, and I needed to eliminate some of that so it could send its energy into fruit production up on top as well, and it's doing its thing. I've got some buried treasure red strawberries. You can see one right here. Benjamin keeps these pretty cleaned up all the time, which I love. Like, I didn't really plant these with any intentions. Russell, what are you doing up there? Are you like a king surveying your kingdom up there? Anyway, so we've got a little bit of trailers. I'll probably pop those off, but they're doing really great. They've been producing pretty much all season. They had a little lull when the tomato was kind of shrouding them from any light, and then they just took off and started producing right away after we pruned that away. We've got boxwoods. There's 4 of them on the end of the smaller beds on each end of the garden, and these are winter gem boxwoods, and they are on drip system now, so I don't have to water these with the hose. In this 3x6 bed, I had Italian garlic planted. I had 72 heads of garlic in a 3x6 bed, and they were wonderful. They're already cured, and I've actually been giving a lot away. So that was great. I planted zinnias in here on July the 1st. So this is 1 month and 16 days after I planted them, and they're blooming. So let me remember the names though. I think this is something giant coral. This one is, giant salmon. Beautiful. I mean, they have such long stems. Check this out. So if you wanted to grow these for cut flowers, which I typically cut quite a number of them for bouquets, they're a really great one. This one right here is the Queen Red Lime. And I don't know, like these look red lime right here, kind of more of like a pinkish purple lime. But then some of them are coming out like this, which they don't have as much of the lime, and maybe that's typical. Maybe the lime is just on the bottom. Either way, I think they're a really pretty flower, and I'm really happy with that quick of growth. And then while we're right here, I was working on this last night. This is a Mazal Basil, and this plant is one of the more vigorous basils I have ever grown. I mean, there are, I think 1, 2, 3, 4 plants maybe in this space. This is one right here. Like this whole thing is one plant. And so I was out here trying to get all the blooms cut off, and I just ran out of time. I ran out of light. But the cool thing about this one, it is downy mildew resistant, which I know a lot of you guys deal with. I don't here, we're so dry here. but I know that's a big issue, so this resists that. And even if it blooms, it doesn't change the productivity or the flavor of the basil. So it's kind of, at this point, just looks, because I know if somebody walks through this garden and they know about basil, they'd be like, oh, you're letting your crop go to pot, because you're letting it bloom, and it really doesn't affect the plant. So I just think it does make it look a little bit cleaner and better. So anyway, that's really a wonderful thing. I've got Thumbergia lemon appeal growing up these obelisks. It's not growing kind of how I was hoping, and it's my fault. What I should have done is tied some twine like in between the two horizontal rungs, and then like kind of made a network for it to climb, because there's nothing for it to climb right here, and I didn't really think about that. And it's trying to do its job, but I'm like seeing it coming up in here, and I've been seeing like around, yeah, it's coming all the way through my parsnips down onto the ground over here. Which honestly, like, it was a fun experiment. I probably wouldn't grow that here again unless I, excuse me, used a different obelisk or like fashioned something for it to climb on. But this is kind of a fun, whimsical thing that it's doing. And then while we're here, we've got parsnips. I planted these this spring. They're clearly loving their life right here. And I'm supposed to leave, this is the first time I've ever grown them. I'm supposed to leave them in the ground and harvest them early next spring. Like, you leave them through a winter and it's supposed to enhance the sugars. So this is just a really fun experiment. I dedicated about a 3x3 space for them. And there's 4 rows in there. And I did thin them out. So like they're thinned out about this far from each other. So they've had plenty of room to grow. So this will be interesting to update you guys on, just to see what I get, because I haven't even tested any. I haven't popped anything out of the ground to see what they look like. I probably should, just out of curiosity. Let's head back this way. I kind of got ahead of myself. Oh, I've got some calendulas in here that, don't get close on those. They need to be worked on. I need to deadhead those, but it's just a fun pop of yellow. Okay, I've got some corn here. I planted July the 8th. So this is just a tiny bit over 1 month old. Now, I was trying an experiment here. I know that they're very closely planted together. I thinned them a little bit, but I wanted to see if I left them in a block thicker, if they would support themselves with our horrendous wind, because they have nothing blocking them from their wind. Our wind travels this way from west to east. And like last year, all my corn ended up flat. Like, it just flattened because it was, it was spaced properly, which does mean it gets proper air and light in the center, particularly of the block. But I just wanted to see what would happen, and I know I'm going to get corn pretty good probably around the outer edges. I may not in the center, but that's okay because that's enough corn for us. And I really just wanted to grow these too for decoration, so I had some corn stalks. And if they support themselves, like, even better. So I'm really happy with that. They look very healthy. I did add biotone. In fact, I add biotone to the soil every time I either prep the beds for a new planting in the spring, or if I'm taking something out and planting something new, I always add more nutrients back into the soil. Right here I have a Treasured Tomatoes Compact or Garden Gem. So these are kind of like aroma type tomato. Benjamin likes to pick these. I find these everywhere. Doesn't matter what color. Like, I'll find green, kind of half ripe, and then ripe ones just kind of scattered about the garden. He thinks it's fun. I think he thought they would be a little sweeter because he's used to the strawberries. So I'll like find him with teeth marks and then nothing else, and he just tosses them. But I've been harvesting off this. I had to add, you can see like my staking system is not the best. I started with these little bamboo stakes, and then things were getting too heavy, and so, which I know better. I am the worst at keeping my stuff staked and like planning ahead for what they will be eventually. I'm like, oh, these little flimsy stakes will work great. And then they put on like pounds of tomatoes. So I slid this over the tomato plant. This is a sturdy cage, or sturdy, I think that's what it's called. Anyway, they're amazing tomato cages. More buried treasure red strawberries around the tomato base. Here I planted some fall crops. So I planted some zinnias in here, and some of them have come up already. Look at this. You can see in here, I'm hoping the others catch up. We've got some here. There's 1, 2, 3. They're kind of scattered. It's looking like, I don't know, we'll just give them some time. It's only been like a handful of days since I planted those. Another lemon appeal Thumbergia. I did spend some time training this one up when I was getting ready to plant because it was kind of all over. I put Oregon sugar pod peas in this bed. I see a couple up. There's one there and one there. It's always really, really fun. to watch things. I'm surprised actually the peas, like the zinnias, beat the seeds a little bit, or the peas. Peas are usually really fast. Over here I have another tempting tomatoes. It's called Good Hearted. It has a spider web on it. Let me clean that off. The foliage on this one is looking a little bit stressed, and it could be just because the plant is sending so much energy into the tomatoes, because I don't see anything on here. Like, I don't see any kind of bug or anything. It just looks a little bit worn out. I have been harvesting off of this one. You can see a lot of these aren't quite there, not quite ready, but this is a determinate, well, it's a semi-determinate tomato. It's been producing the whole season, but it's a really good variety that will be available next year for containers and hanging baskets in particular. So if you garden on a smaller scale, like on a patio or deck or something like that, this is a really good variety for that. I found some dahlias that I bought in like February or March in a bag in the garage just a few weeks ago. And they still looked like they had some life in them. And I thought, you know what, I'll go ahead, there's a weed. I'll go ahead and pop them in any space I have. So I've got some dahlias right here. These are white, I can't remember the name of them, but they're white dahlias. And they're looking great so far. So I may have some October blooms from those. Another lemon appeal that I have not really touched, so it's kind of spilling onto the ground. Then I've got some carrots. These are Shin Carota. Let me see if I can get one out of here. They are like holding pretty fast into the soil. Huh. Hold on. Come on. There we go. Oh. These are a little long in the tooth, like they need to be harvested. I planted these early this spring, and typically, like, you can see how many I've used. I need to do more cooking. But the chickens will like these. You could, at this point, I could pull all of these. I could work on maybe pickling some, and then I could give the rest to the chickens and plant a fresh crop. But, you know, usually I just let them stay in the ground, and I harvest them slowly as I need them, like throughout the fall and winter months, and they do pretty well. Okay, so right in front of me, this is kind of a funny bed because I had the zucchini, well, I still have a zucchini in here. It was huge. Like, my zucchini plant was spilling over into the bed on all sides. It was about this tall, huge, beautiful. I noticed from a distance one morning, it looked like, do I see a yellow leaf? And it, you know, was kind of like up here because I could see it from a distance. And I thought I'll go check on it later. I came out here later and the whole thing was like flat. All the leaves were just like limp and dead, and the whole thing was yellow. Kind of looked in there and it was covered with squash bugs. So I was really kind of discouraged because last year I didn't really have that problem over here. Like, they hadn't found my garden space yet, but they found it. So I started by carefully spraying, and you can use like a neem spinosad kind of blend for that. And so I was like taking each leaf and checking everything. First of all, I cut all the really damaged leaves off, and I was just left with a few. And then I found all of the squash bug eggs. I had gloves on, but I hand squished every single squash bug I could see. I even took the hose and kind of like sprayed the base, and a whole bunch more came crawling out, and I was just squishing all of them. And then I finally, I just got sick of the whole thing. I cut everything off to where it was just like this. You can see right in here, this is the original like stem. And this little like living part is coming off of the base of that, and it's producing. So just a few days later, I noticed it was producing little green leaves, and then I noticed some blooms, and it's actually got some zucchini on it now. Look at that. So anyway, kind of that moment of insanity where I decided to cut everything back, and I thought, well, I'll just cut my losses because it's a zucchini, like you can only eat so much of it. We had already eaten a lot of zucchini and I was already not keeping up with it. So it actually gave us a little bit of a break, and now we can start enjoying zucchini again. Lemon appeal thymbergia on this obelisk as well. I've got a jalapeno right here, and you can see it's just loaded, absolutely loaded. I need to harvest. We've got a pepper called Hot and Heavy, which could use some staking at the moment. You can see it's absolutely loaded, full. This one's from Proven Winners. It will be available next year. And I've used this in a few different things in the kitchen. It's not like super, super hot, but it does have a little bit of heat. And then the rest of these are bell peppers in here. You can see them forming up there, looking good. There are some red ones in here. Anyway, I've been noticing though, I'm wondering if there's something wrong with my water, because I do have to bring a hose over here and water them almost every day, because the plants by midday just look like, the zucchini's fine, the thunbergia's fine, the peppers just seem to suffer a little bit. But this bed, the soil mix seems to almost be a little bit heavier than the rest of them. I don't know how that worked out. But anyway, I need to do some troubleshooting right here. Moving on to the next bed, I've got more zinnias in here. There are, I think, 4 different varieties. These were planted on the same day as the other zinnias. And isn't this weird? Like tall, short, and now I'm wondering, hold on. I think I planted in blocks that way. So this does make sense. We've got Cinderella Peach. Is this a whole row? Yeah, do you guys plant stuff and just like can't quite remember how you planted it? We plant so many things, I forget things really easy. This is Queen Lime Orange. Look at this flower. Look at how beautiful that is. And I do think that that's a complete row too. The Cinderella Peach kind of has like a little, I don't know, it's got like a little skirt around the edge. Really pretty color. Purple Prince right here. Really clear purple color. This is Envy. So we've got the chartreuse green. I think this one is called Polar Bear. I'm gonna walk right in front of you. Polar Bear. So we've got the white with the chartreuse green. And then this one is Isabellina. Kind of a pale yellow. Anyway, they're doing really great. In this raised bed here, I have another, this is a Garden Treasure tomato. Again, my flimsy stakes. The garden center, my parents were in the middle of ordering some more of those sturdy cages, so I'm kind of waiting so I can get my hands on more of those. But these were planted really late, like mid-July. I had them in the greenhouse in 4-inch cans. They were struggling, and I had onions, Walla Walla onions planted in here, 60 of them, and I had 60 in the corn bed as well. So we have a lot of onions. I've been giving those away too, so I decided to pop these in. These are 2 Garden Treasure tomatoes and then a Sun Sugar cherry tomato right here. And then in this 3x4 bed, I've got Blue Lake pole beans, which I skipped that bed on the other side. There's another 3x4 bed on the other end that's kind of identical. It has a bamboo teepee in the middle, and then there's Blue Lake pole beans planted around that one as well, and then dahlias. So I planted 3 dahlias. Kind of on the end, there was a little gap here on both of the raised beds. So I got those planted. These have put on more height than the other ones in the other beds. But usually when I do something in this garden, because it's got kind of I want it to be sort of balanced based on its design. I usually, if I put a teepee here, I want to repeat that on the other side. And I do think I'm gonna move, like these center obelisks. They look so good, I think, right here. But I think I am gonna move them maybe over to these beds here and do something different. We'll see. And I always try to like kind of rotate where I'm planting things too, so that tomatoes aren't always in the same spot. Our alliums aren't always in the same spot, which are garlic and onions. And that way, you know, because every crop is utilizing different nutrients. So I think it's a good idea to do that. In the center here, I just have Super Tunia Bordeaux, and then a yucca. Color Guard, Spanish Dagger, yucca, I think. Anyway, they've actually done really well. I was kind of wondering the watering compatibility on those, because yuccas, you know, don't really need a ton of water and Super Tunias do, but they've done pretty well. I mean, there's a little bit of gap. We had a budworm issue there for just a little bit. This one's rebounding and putting on a lot more blooms. So in no time, I think it'll be full of purple again, but that's been a really fun structure right there. In this last bed, I had cabbage in here this spring. And then I planted, Gardener's Supply sent out this wire A-frame trellis, which I think is really pretty. And I planted a cantaloupe that I'm training to go up. And then I planted 3 rows of spinach underneath, which is not up yet. I've been keeping my eye on it. It gets water in the morning. In fact, you can see my drip tubing, it got kind of askew. It got kind of tossed around here. It watered this morning, and so I'll come out in the afternoon and give it a little bit more water just to supplement. And this one is called This is a Super 45 cantaloupe. I was kind of going after a cucumber because typically those are a shorter day than your cantaloupes, but I couldn't find any when I was ready to plant. So I thought, well, we'll just give this a shot. And I think this is just such a pretty way to grow them. And you can see they how they have these tendrils that just wrap themselves around. So all I have to do when a branch gets a little bit long, it's kind of like hanging here, I'll just kind of feed it through one side. Like I did this last night. I fed this branch through and it's already trying to train itself to grow up there. And then I've got my other 2 boxwoods, so my repeat boxwood structure in here. So that's pretty much it for my vegetable garden. I just thought you guys might like to see it. We haven't done a ton in here this year. Next year, maybe I'll be a little bit better planned out. This year, I feel like I was very planned out on all of our flowers and annuals and perennials and things like that. And in here, I just kind of like threw stuff in however it made sense at the time. But we've had a lot of production in here. Everything has done, like, flourished pretty well. Like everything is giving us fruit and vegetables. So that's all I can ask for from this space. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope all of your gardens are doing really well, and I hope you guys are hanging in there with the summer heat. I mean, we're almost done with the season. So soak it in for the last little bit. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.